Alright, so I'm ducking behind a bush here to get some shelter from the wind. I'm out at Pescadero. It's a beautiful day. Finally got some sun. It's been raining for what feels like weeks. The ocean is still, it's beautiful. There's huge waves. So I want to take this opportunity to kind of, focus on painting some waves. But I want to do a zoomed in view. I'm painting an 11 by 14 inch panel today. And this is something I talked about in a previous video. It's like the size of the panel or the canvas can sort of dictate the way you compose. And my feeling is I like to have a painting stand out from across the room, even when it's a small painting. So when I am painting on a smaller panel, like an 11 by 14, I'll try to compose in such a way that it will have visual impact from a distance. So that tends to be kind of a zoomed in view. So that's the idea, and we'll see what happens. All right, my usual palette of colors. I've got some guest colors today. This is Viridian, and then Cerulean Pure, and then Cobalt Teal. And working on 11 by 14 inch gessoed panel. I am gonna tone with burnt sienna today, thinning with odorless mineral spirits. As I've mentioned before, I like to have little bits of the orange showing through in the finished painting. Sort of complements the blue-greens in the ocean. I know I've talked about this before, but when looking at a scene, trying to determine what it is that you're actually attracted to. And what I like out here is, as the wave is breaking, there's sort of a cast shadow along the top of the wave, which would be like right in here. And then, sort of whitewater pattern. And so I want to, start with that element that's most, interesting to me, and then kind of build on that. And I can, put a horizon out here if I want. And then down here have maybe some other, let's see, like some other wave activity that complements or supports the main feature. And sketching with burnt sienna as well. And I'm using kind of a worn out number 2 natural bristle flat. Since it's a really bright day, I want to capture some of the sunlight feeling. So this area under here is shadow that's cast by the breaking wave. There's some white water that's kind of running up the face of the wave. So the shadow will be split between like a darker color for, the green water. And then this part of the shadow is going to be a little bit lighter in value. And that's the idea, but I'm kind of liking the feel of this. And I've gone with a high horizon here, and there's some sort of purple clouds in the distance. All right, so I'm mixing up a color for the water in the distance, and I'm using ultramarine, a touch of alizarin crimson, some cadmium yellow medium, and a bit of cobalt teal. And this color is just an approximate color. I'm gonna adjust this. Also, I'm gonna come across the top of this water with sky reflections, but just wanna kind of establish some shapes here. By keeping this paint thin, it allows me to, come over with thicker paint and make adjustments. And I can already tell I'm gonna need to add some yellow to this. When I mixed it up on the palette, it looked a lot warmer than it does now that it's on the panel. All right, so I just added some ultramarine to the mix that I had for the water, and I'm gonna indicate the shadow, the cast shadow on the top of the wave here. Again, I can already see this is too blue. That's okay. Now, there's gonna be a whitewater pattern, like the whitewater's right here. So as that comes into the shadow here, it's gonna be lighter in value than this. So I'm gonna add some titanium white to the mix here. There's a little bit of darkness under the breaking wave here. But the value here, I think, is gonna be lighter than this. All right, so for the white water that's in sunlight, I'm using titanium white with a touch of dioxazine purple. I will be coming over this white water with some little bits of warmer white, but for now I just kind of want to establish this whitewater pattern. Even though this is, a wave and there's a lot of motion, I still want to build using simple shapes. I mostly work dark to light, but I feel like sometimes it's good to establish your lights early. I mean, you're partially establishing lights by leaving areas like this unpainted, but I feel like it's always important or very helpful sometimes to put the white down. Then you know for sure what your lightest light is. All right, and white water up here as well, keeping this shape connected. Titanium white and ultramarine here. I keep looking out at the subject. You know, I'm looking at the ocean, and but obviously everything is moving really quickly, so it's kind of a challenge. I know that right along this edge here, there's going to be shadow. Okay, there we go. Back to the white water. All right, along the top where it's in light. All right, and so here's the part of the wave where it's breaking over. I can tell already I'm going to need to lighten that up and also possibly warm it up, but that's a good start. All right, I think I'm going to fill in this portion of the wave here. So I want to make sure this mixture is pretty warm. So I'm using cadmium yellow medium and some burnt sienna and a bit of ultramarine. I think I might need to lighten the value on that a little bit. The warmth looks okay though. Grabbing a little ultramarine blue here. I'm going to add this directly to my shadow shapes here. All right, so for the distant clouds, I'm using ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, and titanium white. And I'm using a number 8 natural bristle flat. It's probably my favorite brush, or the brush that I get the most use out of. Very versatile, although, you know, you can't paint a lot of detail with it, which I think is actually a good thing. Keeps me out of trouble and keeps me focusing on big shapes. Okay, so I think I want the clouds higher over here. To kind of counterbalance things a bit. For the sky around the clouds, I'm using titanium white and cobalt teal. One of the nice things about cobalt teal is it has a lot of tinting power, so I can mix, you know, a light value mix that has quite a bit of saturation. All right, so I want to put some dark water in the foreground, and I'm using ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow medium, titanium white, and a bit of alizarin crimson. And I don't want this foreground to be too complicated because I don't want it to detract you know, from the main feature here, which is, you know, obviously the bigger breaking wave. And I can kind of keep it really loose and sketchy as well, you know, less detail even than this has here, like higher contrast, more structure here. And this is just like kind of a loose, sketchy idea so that the eye will just pass over to the main feature. All right, so I've switched over to a number 4 synthetic flat, and I'm gonna start putting in some sky reflections using ultramarine blue and titanium white. I start off with random shapes, and then I'm simplifying them into a unified shape if possible. A warm color for the white water here using titanium white and cadmium yellow lemon. And I'm keeping it kind of thick. I always look for sort of irregular shapes along the top of the wave, and then also take my finger and sort of blur, you know, some of the edges. All right, so here's what I finished up with. And as I mentioned, I was trying to create a composition that would stand out from across the room. And I do feel like I accomplished that. I did walk back from this painting about 15 feet, and it's very clear what it is. There are a few things I like about the painting that I'll talk about, and then a few things that I'm not crazy about. Number one, I feel like the sky really worked out. These, you know, this sort of saturated purple fog along the horizon, and then how I used titanium white with a touch of cobalt teal for the sky here, for the cerulean portion of the sky. I feel like that worked out really well. I did kind of struggle in the foreground. I was trying to keep it simple shapes, and I did extend this. There was like sort of a line of white water along here, and I kind of extended it out. But I couldn't really come up with, you know, a simple shape pattern in the foreground, so I just kind of kept it loose and sketchy so that the eye would pass over it to the main feature, which obviously is this wave here. I do feel like there's a nice feeling of light on the wave. And this was a little tricky here, you know, having a separation from the shadow, the cast shadow under the wave to the shadows on the white water. It's kind of a delicate value shift there. but I do feel like that worked out. Some of the things I don't think worked out or I could do better. The transition from the white water up the face of the wave, it almost seems a little bit too abrupt. Maybe I could soften that edge right there. This bit of white water is almost too, it's just too circular, almost like a snowball. So I feel like I'd want to make that more irregular in shape. And then also this line, top of the wave here, is just a little too parallel to the horizon. I think originally my idea was to have it slope off, but you know, sometimes you have an idea or your sketch, you have something in your sketch and then you lose it because you're struggling, you know, to capture a color or a value or something like that. Most of my wave paintings are from a distance. So this was really challenging. You know, you're trying to pick up on really subtle things that are happening, but the waves are crashing so quickly that you only have a split second, for example, to like see the shape of a shadow or to see the shape of the water. But I feel like the more I do, the more sensitive I'll become to those little details. So overall, I like the colors. I like the fact that it does stand out from across the room, but I think there are compositional issues that I'm going to try to improve upon next time. To be totally honest, there are times when a painting doesn't work out and I feel like, all right, I'm going to touch this up or I'm going to fix some of the things that bother me before posting it on YouTube. But I've always refrained from that and try to show you guys, you know, the finished product of what I completed in the field, because I think that, as I've said before, if a painting doesn't work out, you know, or there are things I feel like I can improve upon, which is like almost every time, I feel like that's really valuable to share that with you, because instead of getting discouraged from that experience, what I try to do is turn that into a learning experience and something that motivates me to get out the next time and try to solve some of those problems. So yeah, I always try to show you what I came up with, the initial effort, and then, as I've said before, sometimes, or when I'm preparing for a show, I'll look through everything, like look through all my work, and I'll select out my favorites. And almost all of them need some kind of adjustments or some kind of cleanup. But that's typically when I do, you know, any kind of repairs. Most of the time, if something doesn't work out, you know, I'll just kind of live with it and look at it and try to figure out what it is that didn't work, analyze it, be honest with myself, don't beat myself up about it. Use it, like I said, as inspiration to get out and do better the next time and try to solve some of those problems. Because basically that's all we're doing. It's just problem solving. There's no need to take it personally and beat yourself up about it. And I find that that's what I love about painting now. I love the problem solving process. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. Got a bunch of extra videos on there, and it is the Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos. It's much appreciated. So stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.